When my husband started making my tea every morning, I thought it was sweet. A romantic gesture, every woman's dream. Breakfast in bed. Not until I realized he'd been dosing it to knock me out did I understand. That's when my world shattered into pieces. The man I married, the Craig I thought I knew, was a stranger. The Craig I loved was open, wild in laughter, not in secrets. Who was this man smiling across from me while my life fell apart? My name is Emily Carter, and until a few weeks ago, I thought I was living the kind of love story every woman dreams of. Craig Carter and I met in college, the kind of whirlwind romance that makes you believe in fate. He was charming, confident, with a laugh that made everyone in the room feel like they belonged. I used to say that Craig didn't just walk into a room, he lit it up. We married young, built a quiet suburban life together, and for years I felt safe in his arms, or so I thought. It started with little things. Craig had always been attentive, but suddenly he was different. Every morning, without fail, he brought me tea in bed. At first, I was touched. I told my friends at work that I'd hit the jackpot with the most thoughtful husband alive. They teased me, calling Craig Mr. Perfect. I blushed at their words, proud to be his wife. But behind that pride, I noticed something else. He insisted I drink it all. If I left half the cup, he'd smile, but his eyes would tighten, like he was watching too closely. Then came the sleepiness. I've always been a morning person, but after a week of Craig's tea, I started feeling drained, heavy-limbed, like I couldn't keep my eyes open no matter how hard I tried. I blamed it on stress, maybe even age, though I'm only 32, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. My body wasn't mine anymore. One night, lying awake while Craig snored peacefully beside me, I whispered to myself, "What's happening to me?" The words tasted like fear. I wasn't sick. I wasn't overworked. Something else was happening, something I couldn't yet name. The moment of truth came on a Saturday morning. Craig had made my tea as usual, the steam curling up like a ribbon between us. But when I raised it to my lips, I hesitated. His eyes were on me again, steady, almost too steady. That's when a voice inside me screamed, "Don't drink it!" So I didn't. I waited until Craig left the room, then carried the cup to the bathroom and poured it carefully into a small glass vial I kept for essential oils. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly spilled it. That afternoon, while Craig ran errands, I drove across town to see my friend, Dr. Monica Hayes. Monica isn't just a doctor. She's the kind of friend who has held my hair back during flu seasons and cried with me during miscarriages. If anyone would tell me the truth, it was her. I handed her the vial, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own words. "Can you test this for me? Just humor me," I said. Her brow furrowed, but she nodded. "Emily, what's going on?" I lied. "I think maybe the new herbal mix Craig bought is making me sick." But even as I said it, my voice cracked. Monica's eyes softened with concern. She promised to check it in her lab, no questions asked. That night, I crawled into bed next to Craig, my stomach churning with dread. He kissed my forehead, whispering, "Sleep well, baby." I flinched under his touch. For the first time in our marriage, I wanted distance from him. I stared into the dark, listening to his even breaths, and thought, "Who are you?" 3 days later, Monica called. Her voice was tight, controlled, the kind of voice doctors use when they don't want to scare you but know they're about to. "Emily," she said, "there's a sedative in your tea, a strong one, enough to keep you unconscious for hours." My blood turned to ice. I sank to the floor, clutching the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. "Sedatives? Are you saying Craig is drugging me?" The words didn't feel real, like I was reciting someone else's nightmare. "I don't know why he'd do it," Monica said gently. "But Emily, you can't keep drinking it. You need to be careful." That night, I watched Craig differently. Every smile, every affectionate touch, every, "How was your day, honey?" felt rehearsed, like lines in a play I hadn't agreed to star in. When he handed me my tea the next morning, my heart slammed against my ribs. I faked a sip, forcing a smile, pretending everything was normal. But inside, I was screaming. Days turned into a blur of paranoia and fear. I started noticing things I had overlooked before. Craig taking late-night phone calls in the garage. His phone always locked, face down. Receipts from restaurants I hadn't been to with him. And then, one night, the final crack in the mask appeared. I woke up groggy, though I hadn't touched his tea that day, and padded down the hall for water. As I passed his office, I froze. Through the cracked door, I heard him whispering, "Don't worry, she doesn't know. I've got it under control. She's asleep right now." My heart stopped. My legs shook so violently I had to press against the wall to stay upright. He wasn't talking about work, he was talking about me. The Craig I knew, the man who once carried me through the rain because I'd lost my shoes, the man who laughed so hard he cried at dumb comedies, was gone. In his place stood a stranger, a man who drugged his wife, who lied, who hid secrets in the shadows. I returned to bed that night, pretending to sleep, tears sliding silently into my pillow. My world wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. And though I didn't know it yet, the reason behind Craig's betrayal would cut deeper than I ever imagined. The next morning was worse. He placed the steaming cup of tea on my nightstand, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "Drink up, baby." I forced a sleepy smile, lifted the cup, and pretended to sip. Inside, my stomach churned. The same man who used to write love notes in my lunchbox was now drugging me so he could live another life behind my back. I wanted to throw the tea in his face, scream until my throat bled. But instead, I nodded sweetly. If I confronted him too soon, he'd deny it, twist it, maybe even become dangerous. I needed proof, proof I could hold in my hands when I finally tore his mask away. The house suddenly felt like a stage, every room a set, every movement an act. Craig would smile and ask how I was feeling, and I would say better, while hiding my shaking hands under the table. At night, when he thought I was unconscious, I'd listen to his muffled phone calls in the garage, the scrape of his lighter as he smoked, the sound of his laughter, laughter that used to belong to me. It wasn't enough to hear, I needed to see. The first time I searched his office, my pulse nearly burst through my skin. He always locked it, but I'd learned his routine. He left his keys in his jacket pocket before his shower, humming as the water ran. My fingers fumbled as I slid the key into the lock and pushed the door open. The room smelled faintly of his cologne, sharp and suffocating. Papers were stacked neatly, drawers organized like he had nothing to hide. But at the bottom drawer, beneath insurance forms and old files, I found it. A red folder thick with emails and receipts. I skimmed the words, my eyes burning. Hotel bookings, dinner reservations, promises of nights together. And then the dagger. "Don't worry, she'll be out cold. She won't interrupt us." My chest tightened as though the air had been sucked from the room. I had suspected, but suspicion is different from confirmation. Reading the words in black and white was like swallowing glass. Craig wasn't just drugging me, he was doing it to clear his schedule for her. I shoved everything back, locked the drawer, and placed the keys in his jacket just as the water shut off. My reflection in the hallway mirror startled me. Pale skin, wild eyes, lips pressed tight. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She wasn't a wife anymore. She was prey, and her predator was humming in the bathroom, toweling off, completely oblivious to the fact that his game was unraveling. I turned onto my side, my tears soaking the pillow. The man I loved was a stranger, and the stranger was sharing my bed. The next day, I met Monica under the pretense of lunch. We sat in her small office, blinds drawn, the hum of medical equipment filling the silence between us. I slid my notebook across the table where I'd copied some of the messages word for word. She read them, her expression shifting from concern to horror. "Emily," she whispered, "this isn't just betrayal. It's calculated. He's making sure you're unconscious so he can be with her. This is dangerous. Dangerous." The word rattled in my skull. I had thought of him as cruel, deceitful, even monstrous. But dangerous? That opened a whole new pit of fear. Monica gripped my hands. "You can't let him know you're onto him. You need to stay calm, collect everything, protect yourself." That night, I practiced calm. I let him hand me the tea, even lifted it to my lips. He smiled, satisfied, as I placed the cup back on the nightstand. He didn't notice me slipping the liquid into a small travel bottle hidden in my robe pocket. But paranoia is a beast that doesn't sleep. I began noticing more cracks in the mask, his phone always locked, always face down, receipts tucked into his wallet from restaurants we hadn't visited together, nights when he'd leave under the guise of working late, his cologne too strong, his shirt too freshly pressed for any office meeting. My heart broke all over again each time I pieced another shard of truth together. The tipping point came one night when I woke thirsty. I crept to the kitchen, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. As I passed his office, I froze. The door was cracked, light spilling out, and I heard his voice. He was on the phone, whispering, "Don't worry, she's out. She doesn't suspect a thing. I've got it under control." My blood ran cold, the glass of water slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. I held my breath, praying he hadn't heard. The silence stretched, Then his chair creaked. I sprinted back to bed, slid under the covers, and feigned sleep just as the door opened. I felt his eyes on me, lingering, searching. My body was rigid with terror. After what felt like hours, he climbed into bed, and soon his breathing steadied. Mine never did. The next morning, I made a decision. It wasn't enough to have Monica's word or my copied notes. I needed undeniable proof, the kind that couldn't be explained away with lies. So I traced his patterns, hotel bookings, dinner receipts, and found one that matched his usual excuses. A Friday night meeting. My hands shook as I packed a simple disguise, a hoodie, dark jeans, nothing that would draw attention. That evening, when he left, kissing me goodbye as I pretended to yawn, I waited 5 minutes before following. The city lights blurred as I tailed him, every turn of his car leading me deeper into the truth I wasn't ready for, but had to face. He parked near a rooftop bar, straightened his jacket, checked his reflection, and walked inside. I slipped in behind him, the bass of the music vibrating through my chest, my hood pulled low. And then I saw her, sitting at the bar, laughing, her auburn hair catching the light like fire. Craig leaned in, brushing a strand from her face, his hand lingering on her cheek. My throat constricted, bile rising as I watched him kiss her, slow and tender, the way he once kissed me. My heart screamed, but I stayed rooted, clutching my phone. With trembling hands, I raised it and snapped photo after photo. Proof, my proof. Each click of the shutter was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I should have stormed across the room, screamed his name, torn their fantasy apart right then and there. But rage has its place. And that night, I realized patience was my weapon. Let them laugh. Let them touch. Let them believe I was sleeping, drugged, and oblivious. Because when the moment came, I'd destroy them both with the truth. When Craig came home hours later, he smelled faintly of perfume. He smiled, kissed me, and said, "I missed you?" I smiled back, my lips trembling only slightly. He thought he had fooled me, but the truth was, I had never been more awake in my life. He believed he was writing the script. Craig had no idea the walls were closing in. Every morning, he handed me that poison tea, smiling like the perfect husband. And every morning, I poured it down the drain when his back was turned. He thought I was under control. He thought I was weak, but I had the photos, the emails, the folder, and Monica's confirmation. I had everything I needed to burn his double life to the ground. The question wasn't if I would strike. It was how. I spent nights lying awake, replaying every betrayal, every laugh he shared with her. My rage kept me alive, but I needed precision. If I exploded too soon, he'd twist it, make me look paranoid. No, this had to be public, undeniable, irreversible. The opportunity came faster than I expected. Our anniversary. Craig suggested dinner at his parents' house, a gathering with family and friends. "It'll be special," he said, kissing my cheek. I nearly laughed at the irony. He had no idea it would be special, but not for the reason he thought. That night, I dressed carefully, steadying my hands as I applied lipstick. My heart pounded as Craig led me into his parents' living room, where warm laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. He squeezed my hand, the picture of a devoted husband. I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled. Dinner passed in a blur until Craig stood to give a toast. He lifted his glass, his voice smooth. "To my beautiful wife, Emily, the love of my life." He looked at me with eyes that once made me melt, but now only burned. "Here's to many more years together." The room applauded, glasses clinking. I rose slowly, my legs trembling, but my voice steady. "Thank you, Craig. That was sweet. But before we toast, I think everyone should see just how much you love me." I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and mirrored it to the TV in the corner. Gasps filled the room as photo after photo appeared. Craig's arm around Sophie at the bar, their lips locked, his hand on her waist. My voice didn't waver. While I was home drugged and unconscious, Craig was busy living a second life. "This is the man you've all been toasting." The silence was deafening. His mother covered her mouth. His father cursed under his breath. Craig stammered, "Emily, this isn't what it looks like?" "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I cut in, my voice sharp as glass. "You thought you could keep me asleep forever. But I've been awake, Craig, wide awake." He reached for me, desperation in his eyes, but I stepped back. For the first time, I wasn't the woman he could control. I wasn't his prey. I was the storm he never saw coming. And as I walked out of that house, head high, leaving him to face the wreckage of his own lies, I knew one thing for certain. Craig Carter had destroyed our marriage with secrets. I had destroyed him with the truth.